While much of the world has thought that the majority of the remaining 120 hostages who are still in Gaza are dead, an anonymous senior Israeli official just made a bombshell announcement. He said that dozens of Israeli hostages are still alive and that negotiations to release them are ongoing. To nobody's surprise, a new poll conducted inside Gaza and the West Bank has found that support for Hamas is rising, while support for Fatah has been steadily dropping. Across the board, though, the majority of Palestinian-Arabs support Hamas's actions on October 7th, but interestingly, more Arabs in Judea and Samaria support the murders and kidnappings from 8 months ago than Arabs who are currently living inside of Gaza. We also have details on Israel's brilliant plan to punish those nations who have had the audacity to recognize a Palestinian state, as well as new information on the intelligence failures of October 7th. All of these details and a whole lot more coming up on today's podcast. I'm Luke Hilton, and this is the Israel Guys. Hello and welcome to the Israel Guys, where we believe that in a world of anti-Israel propaganda and Jew hatred, you should have a direct connection to the land and people of Israel. Apologies for my slight cold today. You might hear it in my voice. But guys, make sure you hit that subscribe button, hit that notification bell, whether you're listening, watching, and whatever platform you're on. Glad to have you here. If you haven't heard about it yet, we have a raffle going on for the entire month of June. We're halfway there, so you have just 2 weeks left to sign up. We're giving away 2 of our most popular t-shirts, including our West Bank shirt, 2 of our books, our leather patch hat, the incredible I Am Israel photo book with more than 550 photographs of the land of Israel inside, and the Biblical Heartland tumbler. All you have to do to enter the raffle is to join our email list, completely free, theisraelguys.com/raffle. We also got the link down in the description below. And you guys don't want to miss out. Go ahead and drop us your email address today. We're picking the winner at the end of the month of June. So, an anonymous senior Israeli official, he had the condition to be anonymous because he wasn't authorized to speak to the press, but he did talk to AFP, according to this report. And he's saying that there's currently 120 hostages inside of Gaza, right, out of the 250 who were kidnapped on October 7th. And because so much time has gone on, Hamas themselves have come out and said that they don't know where most of the hostages are. A lot of people have considered many of the hostages inside Gaza, they think that they're probably no longer alive. Well, last week, as you guys know, there was an incredible hostage rescue. 4 Israeli hostages were rescued by the elite IDF forces, pulled them straight out of the heart of Gaza, brought them back home, and they all seem to be in good health. Even though they were not treated well as hostages, they were brought back home and are doing okay today. So that was just incredible that there was 4 hostages all being held inside Palestinians' homes. One, actually an Al Jazeera journalist holding, it's not clear exactly who out of the 4, but holding some of the hostages inside his home. So being held in civilian homes. So that kind of shocked the world, right? That after all this time, months and months and months, 4 Israeli hostages were brought out alive. So we know there's 120 still inside Gaza, but the question has always been, how many of them are still alive, right? Well, a senior Israeli official spoke to AFP this week, and he said, quote, "Dozens are alive with certainty." And then he said, "We cannot leave them there for a long time. They will die." And he was iterating how important it is that Israel reaches some kind of negotiation or hostage deal so that the remaining 120 hostages can be brought out, as many of them as possible, alive. And he said, for certain, dozens are still alive, if not more. So according to this official, Israel did green light the hostage deal that Biden announced a couple of weeks ago. That was just so crazy, announced on Shabbat in Israel, terms that Israel said, they were not familiar with. But it sounds like behind closed doors, if this official is correct, behind closed doors, they did say, okay, we'll move forward with it. Well, unfortunately, Hamas never ends up agreeing to the deal. They'll say, yes, we agree. And then they say, no, we don't like these terms. And just according to this official, they changed their terms dozens and dozens of times and over again, right? And their conditions, basically. But this official did say Israel will not end the war until, at minimum, the hostages are released. Our hope is that they won't end the war until Hamas is eradicated. Obviously, now we're 8 months in, and more people are starting to question, How long is it going to take till Israel has eradicated Hamas? When are they going to move up north to deal with Hezbollah, which they've already started doing, right? I read a report today that Israel really only has a couple of weeks left before they can at least majorly slow down the war in Gaza and turn their attention more to Hezbollah on the Lebanon border. Unfortunately, as far as eradicating Hamas, it is unfortunate, like I said, but it could depend on public opinion and according to international pressure, because we know that Israel does cave to international pressure sometimes because they do depend on a lot of things like U.S. aid in the forms of military equipment, arms deals, things like that, which have been held up recently. And the Biden administration is putting more and more pressure on Israel. So the good news is Israel is not going to give in to Hamas's demands because that the IDF withdraw from Gaza. At least we hope not. I don't think they will. And that seems to be one of Hamas's main sticking points as far as conditions go, is that the IDF completely withdraws from Gaza. And that's just ridiculous for any kind of hostage negotiation deal. Obviously, bringing the hostages home is at the forefront of everyone's minds. It's at the top of the priority list for Israel's government, for the IDF, and for so many people all around the world. Even according to the Torah, the rabbis say that freeing and releasing hostages is one of the most important commandments in the Bible. But as we've always said, and as we always know, it should not come at the price of more people giving their lives, right? Or more people being killed in the future. So we want that Hamas to be eradicated, and we want the hostages to come home, and we hope and pray that dozens and dozens, if not all 120 of them, are still alive inside of Gaza. So there was a very interesting survey that came out of the Palestinian Center for Survey and Research conducted in the West Bank and in Gaza. And this survey or poll was conducted between May 26th and June 1st, 2024. So very recent data. The Palestinian Center for Survey and Research is I was looking at their website today. They do a very good job gathering data. They actually, this time they doubled the number of participants in their poll, more than 1,500 respondents in Gaza and Judea and Samaria, and they actually gather this data and information in person. They have data gatherers that go around and interview people in person. So they talked to more than 1,500 people, and according to their release or their findings, it has a 3% plus or minus margin of error. But I thought it was very interesting that this survey reported that 73% of all Palestinian Arabs, meaning those living in Judea and Samaria and those living in the Gaza Strip, support Hamas's decision to launch October 7th attacks on Israel. Now, only 57% of Gazans supported the Hamas attack, but this now what we're seeing across the board from all Arabs in Judea and Samaria and Gaza, this is an increase. It's just been increasing. Basically, the support for Hamas's actions on October 7th. The poll also found that almost all Palestinians believe that Israel is committing war crimes, but they don't believe that Hamas is committing war crimes in this current conflict, okay? We're talking 90% believe that Hamas did not commit any atrocities against Israeli civilians during its October 7th offensive. 41% of Palestinians in Judea and Samaria responded that they support Hamas. Today, they support Hamas, right? Hamas being in power, right? That's risen 5 or 6% in the last couple of months. 17% support Fatah. Now, just to remind you, Hamas has been in power in Gaza since 2006. Fatah has been in power in Judea and Samaria. So you have Hamas ruling and governing Gaza, Fatah ruling and governing the Palestinian Authority, which is in control of the Arab communities in Judea and Samaria. 17% support Fatah. So basically, like, support for Hamas across the spectrum and board is just rising, and basically everybody, almost everybody, the majority of Arabs living in Judea and Samaria and Gaza want Hamas in power, as opposed to Fatah and Mahmoud Abbas in the Palestinian Authority, right? They want Hamas in power in Gaza. They want Hamas in power in Judea and Samaria. And majority of them support October 7th attacks against Israel and the Jewish people. And majority of them do not think Hamas committed any war crimes. And they do think Israel is committing war crimes in the current war. So that's just some very telling information as to who we're dealing with. We're not dealing with the majority innocent Palestinian civilians, right? I mean, the question is there really any such thing as an innocent Palestinian civilian in Gaza and Judea and Samaria? And obviously we know that there should always be innocent civilians, right? And I know there are a few, but 90% think that Hamas is not committing any war crimes. 73% think that Hamas's actions were justified on October 7th. What is it like the majority, and so many people want Hamas actually in power? That is very telling as to who we're dealing with. On top of the fact that when these 4 hostages were rescued from Gaza last week, some of them were being held captive in an Al Jazeera journalist's home. A supposed civilian who's not supposed to be biased, who's supposed to be, fair-minded, right? Actually holding hostage, definitely a violation of international law and war crimes inside his home. He's holding Israeli hostages inside his home. Absolutely horrific. Do you want to join with the people of Israel in their daily prayers? The Israel Bible Book of Psalms, Pray Like David edition in Hebrew and English comes with a complete verse-by-verse English transliteration. That means that even if you don't know Hebrew, you can still learn how to read, pronounce, and understand every single word in the Psalms. With this edition, get ready to pray like King David. With this edition of the Book of Psalms, you'll be able to pray like King David as you understand God's word more deeply and grow closer to him in your prayers. Right now, many of us are praying for the soldiers in the IDF. We're praying for the Jewish people across the world, and we're definitely praying for the 120 hostages still being held captive inside of Gaza. The Psalms have always been a source of strength and protection for the people of Israel, and they form many of the prayers that the Jewish people pray every single day. The Israel Bible Book of Psalms, Pray Like David edition, empowers us to lend our voices to these ancient prayers. Psalms 121 reminds us, I lift up my eyes to the mountains. Where does my help come from? My help comes from the Lord, the maker of heaven and earth. The English translation in the new Pray Like David edition is an accurate translation of the original Hebrew text of Psalms. You can get your copy of the Israel Bible Book of Psalms Pray Like David edition today by clicking the link down below. You can join with the people of Israel by praying through the Book of Psalms in English or Hebrew today. Get your copy by clicking the link in the description below. So what I thought was absolutely a brilliant move, Israel's finance minister, Bezalel Smotrich, has come up with a very unique plan to not only build and grow and develop Judea and Samaria, Israel's biblical heartland, but also to punish the nations and the countries that are trying to come against Israel by recognizing a Palestinian state and formally declaring a Palestinian state, right? And so far we've got... which nations we've got? Norway, Ireland, Spain have all declared their recognition of a Palestinian state, which is just ridiculous. Like, it doesn't mean anything, right? But as we said before, if enough countries actually declared a Palestinian state, Israel could cave to that pressure and let the Palestinians have their own state, which would just be absolute suicide. And we never, ever want that, right? So Bezalel Smotrich, who some consider part of the radical extremist right in Israel, he is part of Netanyahu's cabinet, right? He's part of the coalition government in Israel. He's the finance minister. He's done a lot of good for the land of Israel. I would consider him a Zionist who believes in pioneering and building up the land of Israel. That's who I would consider him to be. If you're wondering, why people consider him to be an extremist, we actually have published a great article on theisraelguys.com. You can read all about Bezalel Smotrich and another firebrand, Itamar Ben-Gvir. But Smotrich came up with this plan. In Israel's security cabinet, the prime minister's office announced that Israel's security cabinet has agreed on a series of measures meant to strengthen Jewish presence in Judea and Samaria and punish the Palestinian Authority for their diplomatic assaults on Jerusalem. And this information comes from a recent JNS article. So on May 22nd, I believe it was, right, like a couple hours after or whenever Spain and Ireland started announcing that they were going to declare a Palestinian state, Smotrich sends a letter to the prime minister's office, right? So a few hours after they announced their support or their declaration of a Palestinian state, this letter was published. And what happened is he put forward proposals that would strengthen settlement in Judea and Samaria, including building 10,000 new housing units, which is just huge. There's 500,000 Jews living in Jewish communities across Judea and Samaria. This would add 10,000 new housing units, which would mean 20, 30, 40, 50,000 new Jews living in Judea and Samaria. So the letter was made public a few hours after Norway, Ireland, and Spain recognized the Palestinian state. By the way, guess who welcomed the announcement of a Palestinian state? Hamas. Right, because Hamas doesn't just want to be in power in their state that was already established in 2006 in Gaza. No, they want to be in power in Judea and Samaria. And as we just saw, the Palestinian-Arabs themselves actually welcome that. They want Hamas in power. So what Smotrich is proposing is, if other countries try to punish Israel by creating a de facto Palestinian state, Israel responds by building and expanding and settling more of their heartland in Judea and Samaria. I think he even said that for every country that recognizes a Palestinian state, we should start a new city or a new settlement or a new Jewish community in Judea and Samaria. Bottom line is, this is a really good thing, by the way, and it sounds like Israel's Security Cabinet is actually about to vote on these measures, and we could see more housing units approved to be built in Judea and Samaria in the very near future. But I do have to say, Israel should not have to wait until other countries come against them, until other countries slam them, until other countries try to take out their land from right under their feet, try to give away land for peace, right? They shouldn't have to wait until Jews are killed in terrorist attacks, because often that's what we see happening, as Jews are killed in a terrorist attack, and Israel's government responds by approving new houses to be built in that community where the victims were from, or in a nearby community, or just anywhere in Judea and Samaria. They say, no, in response to this horrific murder and terrorist attack, we're going to build new housing units. That is good that Israel's building up the land of Israel, but they shouldn't have to wait until Jews die. They shouldn't have to wait until countries come against them and try to say, we're taking your land away from you to have to build and settle and develop the land of Israel. It's a very, very sad thing, and it should cause us, as those from the nations, to more strongly support Israel, to just build the land of Israel no matter what. Don't wait for opposition. Don't wait for Jews to die. Don't wait for terrorist attacks, but just build the land of Israel. There's thousands, if not hundreds, and if not millions of people who support Israel's right to be sovereign in the biblical heartland of Israel. So last story for today's podcast, and that is that some information came out. Jewish Breaking News published this, but it came from Israel's Channel 12, one of the Hebrew TV language channels here in Israel, with a new report about Israel's Unit 8200, which is the intelligence unit responsible for providing information. Unit 8200, which their acronym is Aman in Hebrew, is considered Israel's eyes. They're the largest unit in the IDF. They're considered Israel's eyes, right? Providing crucial intelligence information and data on Israel's enemies so that they can be prepared to deal with attacks. So Unit 8200 obviously was responsible for watching the Gaza border fence, right? And making sure that Hamas did not, or that nobody infiltrated from Gaza. So according to this report, Israel's Channel 12 News, on the night of October 6th, a malfunction occurred in the technological system of Unit 8200. Now, the malfunction was fixed by, I think, about 5 a.m. in the morning, but by then, Hamas terrorists were already starting to infiltrate into Israel. And a senior officer in the military intelligence branch said, quote, "This could have prevented the security breach." So here's what happened, according to this report, and I'm sure there'll be more information coming out in the near future. October 6th, 11 p.m., that's Friday night, 11 o'clock at night, 7.5 hours before the attack started, a malfunction occurs in the system, the intelligence system. System shuts down. They can't get any data about anybody, about Hamas, about the enemy, them advancing toward the Gaza border. They can't get any data because the system malfunctioned and it shuts down. Now, malfunctions happen, right? But this was an unusual time because, according to other reports, they had been monitoring activity by Hamas and anticipating a potential threat, right? So soldiers, they called in soldiers from home to come and fix the malfunction. Remember, this was a holiday. It was a Friday night. It was the Sabbath, so they had to call people in from home. They were summoned immediately. Some people, and this is where there's a discrepancy, right? Some people say they got there after 3 a.m., so 4 hours after the system goes down. Some people say no, they were called in right away. But 5 a.m., 6 hours after the malfunction and after the system went down, the system is fixed, but it's only an hour and a half before the attack actually happens, meaning Hamas was already advancing into Israel, right? And then by the time the system could retrieve real-time data and then restore the previous information, the attack had already started. So the commander of Unit 8200 reported that the malfunction was communicated to the head of military intelligence and the chief of staff and the head of the Shin Bet, which is like Israel's FBI. However, a senior intelligence officer claimed he was not informed that the system was down. So we, again, have more discrepancies here because obviously a lot of, if you're responsible for October 7th happening, probably one of two things are happening. You're either resigning in shame and in disappointment that you know this happened on your watch, or you're just denying that you were a part of it and that you had any responsibility. And we seem to see both of those things happening right now because we've had several senior officers and officials resigning over the intelligence failures of October 7th. But we also have like this, we have people denying any responsibility or saying, oh, well, I wasn't informed, I wasn't involved. A former senior intelligence source told Israel's Channel 12, quote, if the system had been working during those hours, during the night of October 6th, it is highly likely that significant information would have emerged, altering the intelligence picture. There were Israeli signals in Gaza and indicative signs, but there was no supporting intelligence. If this system was operational and no information was coming from it, it would weaken the assumption of an invasion plan. However, since the system was down, the intelligence assumption should have been more severe. So what he's saying is the system was down, so therefore we should have taken steps to anticipate that, you know, the system's down. We need to provide extra security, extra intelligence, more units, whatever it was, while the system's down to make sure that an attack doesn't happen. So the IDF spokesperson's unit had an official response to this report, and they said, quote, the IDF is currently in the midst of investigating the events of October 7th and the preceding period. The claims made in the report are being examined as part of these investigations. Upon completion, the findings will be presented to the public transparently. So more information will be forthcoming. Obviously, the big questions are still what exactly was responsible for the failures of October 7th. Why didn't the IDF take additional action when the intelligence systems went down? When was information communicated? Who was it communicated to? And ultimately, who is at fault? And we'll have to just stay tuned for all of that. Guys, that's it for today's episode on the Israel Guys. Don't forget to pick up your copy of the Israel Bible Book of Psalms. You can get that by clicking the link down in the description below. And don't forget to join our email list for your free chance to win the Israel Guys merch package at the end of June. It's completely free. theisraelguys.com/raffle. And don't forget to subscribe and let me know what you think about today's podcast in the comment section below. As always, tune out the fake news and tune into what is actually happening here in the land of Israel. We're here every Monday through Friday with your direct connection to the land and people of Israel.